Showdown. The Crows. And the Power.
Broadbent from 50 metres.
It's the grand final of showdowns at Amy Stadium, with bragging rights up for grabs.
Crows, be decisive.
It's exactly what Port Adelaide wanted.
Join 5AA for Adelaide's most passionate coverage of the Belters Showdown Sunday. Thanks to Thirsty Camel. You'll be kicking goals with the specky deals at your local Thirsty Camel bottle shop. In Adelaide, football is 5AFL.
Interactive radio. Tweet at 1395 5AA. Peter Godfrey.
Coming up to 16 minutes past 5 on a Thursday morning, and here we are into August already. Where's the year gone? Let's take a look at things happening in New Zealand. Selwyn Manning joins us from livenews.co.nz. How are you, Selwyn?
Yeah, very good, Peter.
Welcome to August. You were there before us, though, of course, by a couple of hours.
Yeah, by just a bit of snips there. Yeah, just crossed the line a little bit quicker.
That's it. Now we're going to get on to, well, a recurring topic.
Yeah.
What do you say? Greetings from the land of spies and surveillance. This whole GCSB and who's spying on who and Kiwis getting spied on, but it's taken another step by the sound of it, is it? With
yes, definitely.
A journalist having their phone and email communications documented?
That's right. You can just about replace the word New Zealand or the name of the country, New Zealand, to New Stasi, the way this thing's starting to shape, Peter. It's a shocker, really. And it just keeps going on, and it can't be, when doing these news roundups, I just can't help but raise them. But, yes, what's happened is the New Zealand Parliament's Privileges Committee has initiated a public investigation into how parliamentary services and why it accessed and handed over to the Prime Minister's investigator all emails and phone records between the political journalist, Andrea Vance, and the then Cabinet Minister, now MP, Peter Dunn. Now, these communication records, Peter, they span that period when he was a minister. This is only a few weeks ago, really, months ago. It goes from April through May. So what happened there is Peter Dunn was suspected of leaking a confidential report into New Zealand's spy agency, the electronic one, the GCSB. Now, what happened here is the Prime Minister's investigator, David Henry, the person who was set loose to basically find out who leaked this confidential report to journalist Andrea Vance. Now, David Henry, he was tasked by the Prime Minister, and that's an important point there. He was tasked and given that job to go and find out how this confidential report into New Zealand's electronic spy agencies found its way into the hands of the journalist Andrea Vance. This week, it was revealed that all phone and email records between the two people were obtained by parliamentary services and handed over to the Prime Minister's investigator without the permission of either Peter Dunn, who was then a Cabinet Minister, nor Andrea Vance, who is a political journalist that's located in the Parliamentary Press Gallery for Fairfax newspaper. Now, these revelations, Peter, that really caused an uproar here in New Zealand, particularly amongst the parliamentarians and journalists who believe that the Prime Minister or his investigators had no right to invade the private communications of a minister and a political journalist. And they're saying that, that this is very much a breach of the functions on how the democracy goes. When you've got the power of the office of the Prime Minister acquiring such information from parliamentary services, they're supposed to work poles apart. The legislature is supposed to stand independent of the executive office of the government and the Prime Minister. And they're saying that these lines have been blurred and that is a very dark revelation that has occurred so recently in New Zealand's history.
This brings John Key into it, obviously, and I'm assuming that there's been some questioning of him about what's going on or his recollections of what went on?
Yes, in Parliament this week, the Prime Minister, John Key, he denied instructing David Henry, remember that he's the investigator, to acquire these specific communication records. The Prime Minister also denied any knowledge of whether his Chief of Staff, Wayne Eagleson, had heavy-handed parliamentary services, pressured them in a way, of acquiring the communication metadata and handing it over to his investigator. Now, the allegations are that that's exactly what happened, and that the Chief of Staff, Wayne Eagleson, had used his position in the office of the Prime Minister to get parliamentary services to acquire that information and to cough it up, basically. Now, the Labour and the Green parties are outraged, as you could imagine. They're in opposition here in New Zealand, and they say that the Prime Minister has been vague when it suits him and avoids the detail. And watching the Prime Minister in the Parliament, particularly yesterday, one gets the feeling that he genuinely didn't know that this information, or he kept himself out of the detail of it, perhaps, which then raises the question on who really is guiding the agencies that he's in control of. Are they rogue? Are they making these kind of invasive spying decisions unilaterally without the Prime Minister's consent? So either way he goes, the Prime Minister is in a very difficult position here.
Yeah, I was thinking that if he knew and explicitly gave those instructions, that's a pretty serious issue. But it's equally serious if he is truthful in what he's saying about not being aware or not giving that instruction. It's almost like a ship with a rudder, but no one's got the handle on it. Yeah.
And remember, in New Zealand under John Key, we've found that the spy agencies that he is responsible for as the Prime Minister have illegally been spying on New Zealand, that now they want to change the law to make what they were doing illegal legal, and it goes on and on and on. And one does get the feeling that John Key, as a Prime Minister, is a very popular Prime Minister, certainly in certain areas of governance, he is exceptional. But when it comes to detail, he is just not a technocrat. And I guess after 9 years of a Prime Minister like Helen Clark, who knew the detail that was under every rock without having to sick the spies onto people, one gets a feeling that New Zealand's been let down to a degree by this guy.
So is this leading to a change in the support for Key? You said, he's been a very popular Prime Minister. Do polls indicate this is affecting his support at all? Or
He has been dipping over time. The trends are showing that he is suffering a slow ebbing of popularity in the polls. But having said that, just when the opposition parties seem to be getting on top of the government and having polling shift, like for most of the early part of this year, something happens within the Labour Party that causes the public to think, oh, no. In a way, the polls go to other parties and back to the national-led government. But the Prime Minister's popularity used to be a long way ahead of the National Party's popularity, and that's reversed now. So the trends have been set where John Key, in the minds of many, he's not doing, he's not representing the kind of New Zealand perhaps that they would like. When we're talking percentages, we're talking like, in the 40s, whereas his popularity is sitting now, whereas it used to be in the mid-50s and the 60s.
Okay.
But if you look at the opposition leader, David Shearer, Labour leader David Shearer, his popularity's down there. It ranges between 10 and 15%. So there's a big
stark difference there, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah. On this last week, you're saying that there was some rallies planned.
Yes.
So how were they? Can you give us a bit of follow up on there? How were they attended?
Very, very, very well. Those were there were protests against the new laws that John Key, the Prime Minister, is proposing to put through, and they go before the Parliament this weekend and continue on as well. Now, those new laws is what people were coming out to protest against, and there was huge numbers in Auckland that took up half of Queen Street, which is the main street in Auckland City, but in Wellington was the same, and every centre in New Zealand had right through the provincial towns, the provincial cities, people were going out and protesting against this particular bill. One gets a sense that while the Prime Minister may still enjoy the popularity of a considerable proportion, the policies and the new law, like this particular law, is falling out of favour with the average New Zealander. There was a cross-section of people turning up at those meetings from every walk of life, and we haven't seen that kind of resistance since the mid-2000s when the Helen Clark-led government brought genetic engineering into New Zealand, and there were mass protests against that. So it was a significant moment, perhaps, in this particular government's term.
Yeah, and I did see a story online too on, I don't know how wide, on IT News anyway. There was some hackers attacking government websites. This was in regard to that as well, in protest to that? Yeah.
And significant hackers. This is the Anonymous group that sent a message to John Key that unless he backs off this particular legislation, then Anonymous is going to get more serious about this type of thing. So the Anonymous movement worldwide is notorious for bringing down government websites that it feels are contrary to the way the world should be run. And it successfully brought down the Prime Minister's own website. A lot of the ministers in the national-led government here, their websites all went down as well, and some of them are still down, and some will take quite a while to restore. I mean, one cabinet minister, Simon Bridges, said it's going to take him quite a while. He's got so many photographs of himself on there that it'll take a while to restore. So he took it in a tongue-of-cheek manner. So did the Deputy Prime Minister, Bill English, but others were saying that this is a criminal act by Anonymous and that it should be pursued.
Okay, so what websites did they hack?
They hacked johnkey.co.nz, simonbridges.co.nz, the Justice Minister, Judith Collins.co.nz. On and on the list goes. Bill English's site.
So they weren't the websites of any government services or anything like that?
It was like that. What they were doing was the first shot of warning.
Okay.
So I guess the security around the government's own websites were probably, I'd imagine, that the security is a lot more robust than the actual cabinet ministers themselves.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting one to see if that continues on. But this was following on from the public meetings that were also held last Thursday evening, where Kim.com, Mega Upload boss, attended. And he put a warning out to Anonymous. He said, back off doing this type of thing.
Okay.
Because what will happen is it gives the Prime Minister good reason to strengthen up the spying law.
Yeah, fair point. All right, I suspect we'll be talking on this more in future discussions, Selwyn.
Yes.
Somehow. All right, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We will catch you again next week from New Zealand.
Okay, Peter.
Thanks, Selwyn.
See ya.
Selwyn Manning in New Zealand, and to read more, find out more, go to livenews.co.nz. And Stone's got our news, sport and weather coming up next, and then Leith Forest will ease you into breakfast with Keith Conlon and Jane Riley. Have a great Thursday. Enjoy the sunshine today.
Now that there's a new